a storm-scoured night. A knock sounded at the cottage of Donald Aldridge, retired swordmaster.
You killed my husband. Now you will teach his son to fight.
The blood drained from his face. He knew the blade instantly.
By clan law, my son must be trained by the warrior who orphaned him.
I will not train an orc to kill more humans.
He does not seek revenge. He seeks to understand his father's death.
A small green boy, no more than 7, clung to her leg, silent and wide-eyed.
We will not leave. If you refuse, we stay in your barn until you change your mind.
Donald stared at the sword, then at the boy, and felt a chill deeper than the rain. She turned without a word and led the boy to the barn. Donald shut the door, feeling the weight of the blade.
She cannot force my hand. I owe her nothing. I killed her husband in a fair fight, an honorable death.
But the image of the boy's wide eyes burned in his mind, no matter how often he looked away.
Mother, why did father have to die?
Because in war, warriors fall, but his death will not be meaningless if you learn from it.
She pulled him close, her voice trembling with old grief, the lantern casting long shadows. Hours later, Donald sat alone by the hearth, the fire reduced to embers, the silence pressing in like a verdict. He lay in bed, staring at the rafters, the rain, a constant drum, each drop a reminder of her unyielding words. When sleep finally came, it brought the duel. He saw the orc warrior's blade falter, the snow stained red, the life fading from his eyes as he fell. Donald woke with a start, his skin clammy, the phantom clang of steel still ringing in his ears. Morning light broke over the farm, the storm gone, but a chill tension still clung to the air. Vrelka was already outside, fixing a broken fence rail as if she had lived on this land for years.
Let him see I am no burden. I will earn our place here.
Donald emerged, axe in hand, and began splitting wood with sharp, angry strokes. Kren lingered by the barn.
He moves like father did.
Donald felt the boy's stare like an itch he couldn't scratch, but he did not turn around. Later, reaching for a chisel, he found it clean and sharp. The rusted edge now gleamed.
She fixed my tools, the neglected ones. Cunning.
He watched her working, unasked and uncomplaining. Irritation warred with a reluctant curiosity. He said nothing, but that night he left the barn door slightly ajar, though he refused to ask himself why. Days slid past, each morning bringing the same unspoken tension between the cottage and the barn.
Be patient, my son. Humans are slow to trust, but trust can be earned with time.
In Millhaven, however, patience was wearing thin. Whispers turned to sharp glances whenever Vrelka walked to the well, Kren clutching her cloak.
Mother, they hate us. I can feel it.
Let them look. We have done nothing wrong. Your father's memory is our armor.
The quiet unrest reached Donald's door when a neighbor came to call. He spoke of fear, of the danger the orcs would bring upon the village if they were allowed to stay.
I've faced worse than a few wagging tongues. They stay as long as they need.
The man spat on the ground and left. Donald stared after him. Realizing his refusal had already begun to cost him, the boy approached Donald at the chopping block, his small fists clenched, the father's sword resting on a stump nearby.
That sword, is it the one you used against my father?
It is. A weapon of war, not a child's toy. Go back to your mother.
Will you teach me to use it? To be like my father?
Number, I am no teacher to orcs.
Donald turned away, but the boy's voice cut through the morning air.
Please, I need to understand. Mother says, only you can show me.
There is nothing to understand. Leave me be.
Kren stood frozen, the weight of rejection pressing on his narrow shoulders. Later, Vrelka found him in the barn. She said nothing, just wrapped her arms around him as silent tears fell. That night, Donald sat in the dark, the echo of the boy's plea gnawing at him. When he finally collapsed into a dream, it was of the duel again, sharper than memory.
The snow turned crimson, He saw the surprise in the warrior's eyes. He did not think I would strike so fast.
But this time, the fallen orc's face shifted, becoming young, unmarked, becoming Kren's face. He jerked awake, drenched in sweat, the barn calling to him like a silent accusation. Without conscious thought, he found himself in the barn, the moonlight falling on the sword. The blade rested on the hay, peaceful as a sleeping snake, his hand extended, trembling toward the worn hilt. His face, half lit by the moon, twisted with an old guilt.
Number, I will not touch it. That blood will never wash off.
He withdrew his hand, left the barn, and sat in the dark until dawn, haunted by what he had almost done. At first light, Donald crept back to the barn. Relka was already awake, watching from the shadows, the sword between them.
You came back. I knew you would, but staring at the blade won't change what you are or what you owe that boy. You are not refusing to train him. You are refusing to face your own shame.
I have nothing to be ashamed of. The duel was fair.
Then why can't you hold this sword? Why does it burn your hands?
She lifted the sword and placed it across his lap, hilt toward his chest.
Take it. Take everything it means, and teach my son to be more than a weapon.
She left him sitting in the hay, the blade cold against his thighs, the silence after her words louder than any war cry.
She's right about the shame. But how do I teach him forgiveness when I can't forgive myself?
3 days later, Donald saw Kren in the clearing, a crooked stick in both hands, copying the drills he had watched through the woodpile.
If I learn this, maybe he will see I am serious.
Donald watched from the barn's shadow, his hands unconsciously mirroring the correct grip.
He's holding it too high. He'll break a wrist.
Before he could stop himself, Donald stepped into the light and placed his calloused hand over the boy's, adjusting the fingers.
You are showing me.
A broken wrist won't teach you anything. Keep it straight, like this.
Then he released the boy's hand and walked away, not looking back.
He touched my hand. He wanted me to hold it right.
From the kitchen window, Vrelka watched the small exchange, and for the first time, allowed herself a breath of hope. That fragile hope shattered the next afternoon, when a hard knock came at the gate. Vrelka grabbed Kren and stood before the barn, her body a shield, her eyes cold steel.
We have broken no law. You will not chase us from this farm.
Before the men could surge forward, Donald stepped through the gate, his long sword naked in his grip.
You are on my land. Leave now, and no blood will be spilled.
The men hesitated, eyes flicking between the orc and the human blocking their way, weighing the steel.
I said leave. The boy stays. I will not ask again.
The leader stepped back, his lip curled. The threat was sharp as a blade. This isn't over, Aldridge. Donald held his stance until the last man disappeared down the road, then slowly lowered his blade.
Now, there's no going back. I've chosen a side, and it isn't my own kind.
After the threat was gone, Donald sat on a hay bale, the orc's sword resting across his knees. Vrelka approached, her voice quiet but urgent.
The law is not about revenge. It demands that the killer teach the orphan the way of the fight, so he may understand and surpass. Only by knowing his father's death can Kren break the cycle of hatred. You are the only witness, the only one who can teach him what really happened.
That evening, under a sky full of stars, Donald turned to Kren. The fire crackled as he spoke.
What do you want, boy? Revenge? Or something else?
I want to protect people. Like you did today. I don't want anyone else to die because of war.
Then listen. Your father was the bravest foe I ever met. I ended his life, but I never stopped respecting him.
He told the whole story, from first strike to last breath, holding nothing back.
Will you teach me now? Please, I want to carry his memory and your lessons.
Donald placed the heavy blade into Kren's small hands. He nodded, a single tear tracking through his beard. The next morning, training began in earnest. Donald led Kren through the basic stances, his voice rough but patient.
Feet wider. Bend your knees. A weak base is a grave before the fight starts.
Like this.
While Kren drilled, Vrelka worked the garden, her hands turning the earth, the farm slowly coming alive under her touch. Evenings were for stories. Kren would sit by the workbench, watching Donald carve small figures, the orc sword always within reach.
What was my father's favorite technique? The one he used when he was happy, not just in battle.
He had a sweeping guard, low and fast. He'd spin into it with joy. It was beautiful.
Donald set down his carving knife and lifted the sword, demonstrating the movement in the lantern light, his shadow dancing.
He was a poet with steel. Kren, you have his reach. You'll learn it.
The boy watched with shining eyes, the farm, the fire, and the future weaving into something like home. Months flowed by, the orchard leaves turning gold and falling, while Kren's arms thickened with every drill. One afternoon, a human boy from the village wandered to the edge of the clearing, watching Kren practice alone.
You can try if you want. The grip is different from what you'd think.
The boy hesitated, then picked up a fallen stick, and soon the clearing rang with laughter as their blades tapped together. That friendship became a bridge. Other children followed, and the cold stares from adults began to thaw into cautious nods. In the village market, Vrelka set out her garden's produce. A farmer's wife added a sack of onions with a silent nod.
This is kind. Thank you.
More small gestures followed. A loaf of bread left at the barn door. A patched cloak hung on the fence for Kren. When Kren shielded a village child from older bullies on the main road, the balance shifted sharply. Whispers didn't cease, but now they were mixed with respect. The farm was no longer an outpost. It was becoming a home. Seasons turned. Kren, now 12, moved with the fluid grace Donald had only dreamed of passing on.
Good. You are reading my eyes, not my hands. That's the mark of a true fighter.
I see the steps before you take them, just like you taught me.
Then, with a twist Donald could not counter, Kren's wooden blade rested lightly against the old swordsman's throat.
He did it. The boy's beaten me. My work here is almost done.
Master, I never meant to win so completely. Your teachings.
Before Donald could reply, the thunder of hooves shattered the orchard's peace. A rider raced toward the farm. The man reined in, breathless. His words cut through the quiet. Raiders, moving fast. They'll hit the village by tomorrow. Kren dropped the wooden stick and walked to the barn, where his father's sword lay waiting. He lifted it, testing the edge. The farm that had become a home would soon be a battlefield, and the boy who had come to learn was now ready to defend. The village hall filled with grim faces. Donald stood among them, his voice cutting the fear like a blade.
Kren has trained under me for years. He knows their tactics. Make him a captain, and he will hold the line.
The elder hesitated, then nodded. Some villagers still shifted uneasily, but no one dared refuse.
They look at me differently now, like I am no longer a stranger.
Kren spent the last hours of daylight with his father's sword, repeating the sweeping guard until his muscles burned.
You will not fight alone, my son. I will stand where your father stood, beside you.
Vrelka strapped on an old leather chestplate, her braid tight as a warrior's vow, and picked up a heavy spear. Through the night, the palisade was reinforced. Farmers and shopkeepers hammered planks, fear forging them into a wary unit.
Remember, Kren, the first rule of defending a wall is don't be a hero, stay alive, and keep them outside.
As the first gray light touched the rooftops, the village fell silent, waiting for the storm of iron and blood about to break. The raiders came with the sun, a wave of scarred iron and roaring voices breaking against the palisade.
Archers, loose, pikemen, hold the line. Don't let them widen the breach.
Kren moved like water and steel, his father's sweeping guard deflecting a raider's axe before pivoting into Donald's precise riposte.
Stay close, Kren. We hold this ground together.
Donald cut down 2 raiders, his old muscles remembering their deadly trade. But his eyes never left the boy. But an axe from behind caught Donald across the ribs. He fell hard, the pain stealing his breath. Kren lunged, his blade blocking the killing blow meant for his master. Sparks flew as steel met steel.
Good boy. Hold them.
Vrelka fought her way to their side, spear dripping, forming a wall of flesh and fury around the fallen swordsman. The battle raged on, and Kren stood over his master, the weight of two fathers pressing on his shoulders.
That one is mine. He leads them. Cut off the head and the body dies.
The raider leader turned, a brute with a notched blade and dead eyes. Kren charged, no hesitation now. Steel screamed. Kren flowed from his father's sweeping guard into Donald's overhead slash, a style all his own now. A final parry, a riposte through the raider's guard. The leader fell, and the raiders' nerve broke. They fled, a tide of fear receding, leaving their dead and their wounded. The village stood. Kren's sword arm dropped. He turned and ran to Donald, falling to his knees in the mud.
Hold him still. The bleeding is deep, but it missed the lung. He will live if we keep pressure.
Kren, my son. You held. You won.
Don't speak. Save your strength. We'll get you home.
Smoke rose over the palisade, but cheers began to lift from the defenders. The orc boy had become their champion. The village square overflowed with weary but jubilant faces, the elder stepping onto a crate to be seen. The elder's voice rang out. Today, we honor Kren Ungroth, who fought as one of our own. The crowd, once cold with suspicion, erupted in cheers that washed away years of silence. Karen knelt beside Donald's stretcher, grasping his hand through the bloodied bandages.
You did well, my son. I am proud of you.
I only did what you taught me. I couldn't let them take you.
Vrelka sat on Donald's other side, her hand resting over his, a quiet understanding passing between them. The elder declared them kin to the village, and the crowd answered with a roar that shook the rooftops. Humans and orcs worked side by side to mend the broken palisade, the last barriers crumbling with every nailed plank. The farm was no longer an outpost. It was home, and the family within it had grown beyond blood. Seasons turned into years, and the apple orchard Donald planted after the battle grew tall and white with blossoms. Donald himself had grown white with age, his warrior's frame now leaning on a carved stick as he sat among the trees. Kren, now a broad-shouldered man, shouldered the duties of the farm and the village militia, two swords always on his back. Those swords hung above the cottage hearth, one heavy and orc-forged, one human and worn, crossed in permanent kinship.
You did not eat your soup again.
I was watching the bees, Vrelka. They work harder than I ever did.
Vrelka set the bowl beside him and sat down, her hand finding his weathered one.
I still remember the night I knocked on your door. You looked at me like I was a ghost.
A ghost? Perhaps. But it was my own ghost I feared most.
They sat in the orchard silence, the past finally at rest, the future simply now. One morning, apple blossoms drifted like snow, and the old bench held a stillness deeper than sleep. Vrelka came with a blanket, intending to chide him for sitting too long in the chill. She touched his hand and knew. No breath, no stirring, only a faint smile that said he had left in peace.
You stubborn man, you finally rested.
Kren found them that way, his mother's tears silent on the green of her cheeks. He understood without a word.
We will bury him where his bees work. He would like that.
Under the oldest apple tree, Kren's shovel broke the earth. They worked in silence until the grave lay ready. They wrapped Donald in a simple cloth and lowered him into the ground. The birds were quiet. Kren fetched the two swords from the hearth, his father's and Donald's. He crossed them atop the fresh mound, steel touching steel. The orchard had claimed him back, and in that crossing of blades, a warrior's peace was sealed forever.
I will carry both fathers with me. One gave me blood, The other gave me skill and love. I will teach my son what you taught me, so your legacy never fades.
Vrelka knelt and placed a smooth river stone on the growing cairn, her hand lingering on the cold surface.
He rests with his orchard. He would want us to keep tending it.
She added the last stone and rose, her silhouette against the sinking sun. The sun lowered, painting the blossoms gold and pink, as if the orchard itself was saying farewell. Together, mother and son turned and walked away, leaving the grave behind, but carrying everything it meant.
He called me son. I will honor that word every day of my life.
The cottage awaited them, its warm windows aglow, and inside, the hearth still held the heat of a fire that never truly went out. The swords on the grave stood as a quiet monument to a war that had turned into a family. The years softened the edges of grief, and the orchard grew thick with every spring. One morning, Kren walked the orchard rows with a small orc boy on his shoulders, his own son.
See that tree, little one. It grew from your grandfather's rest. The sweetest apples.
The boy reached for a low branch, and Kren lifted him, their laughter soft under the blossoms. Inside the cottage, the two swords still crossed above the hearth, gleaming in the firelight. Vrelka, her hair now white as the blossoms, added a log and smiled at the dancing flames. The fire caught, shadows playing on the crossed blades, as if two warriors still guarded the home. Outside, the orchard stood in full bloom, petals drifting over the old bench like a slow, gentle snow. The grave had softened into a mound of wildflowers, the crossed swords a quiet landmark for all who passed. And in that farm, a family built from war had become something that would outlast them all. And so the orchard lived on, rooted in the courage of a widow who sought a teacher for her son. In the quiet rustle of leaves, the story of Donald Aldridge is told. A man who learned that forgiveness grows from the same soil as war. Kren carries both swords now, one heavy with his father's blood, the other light with the memory of a stranger who became family. And in the cottage, an old orc woman tends the fire, her hands remembering the day she knocked on the door of an enemy and asked for his help. The bridge between enemies is not built with grand treaties or defeated armies. It is built with small acts of courage, a bowl of soup, a corrected grip, a sword returned hilt first in the rain. Donald's legacy lives on in every apple that falls, in every lesson passed from father to son, in every warrior who chooses protection over vengeance. And in that orchard, where two swords mark a grave, peace is not a memory, it is a living thing. So when you see an orc and a human walking side by side through a village that once feared them, remember this story, for it is a story of how war ended, not with a final battle, but with a knock on a cottage door.